Sales Nation, in this video, I'm going to teach you the structure and the steps to build an incredible, perfect pitch. I'm going to give you the formula. I'm going to give you the keys. I'm going to show you how to put it together so that in 3 seconds, you're going to be closing deals. Now, the perfect pitch formula is incredibly powerful, and after just 10 minutes of this video, you're going to be able to implement it and win way more B2B sales. Because owning a perfect pitch is a real competitive advantage in B2B selling, in a place where most sales professionals don't do much other than talk about their products' features and their products' benefits when they're pitching a prospect. A great pitch can make you stand out. And the magical thing about all of this is, and you're going to find this out shortly, it only takes about 3 seconds. So why does the perfect pitch not just happen in 3 seconds? Why does it have to happen in 3 seconds? Well, firstly, it's because we're all just so damn busy. There's more beeps and vibrations than ever distracting us. Even while you're going through this video, I bet you're getting some kind of alert or text notification, or you've got 2 windows open, or you've got your phone open watching this, and you've got your screen open doing your emails, whatever it is. We're all constantly getting screamed at to take our attention. Additionally, in this point of the selling process, when you're initially pitching the prospect, you've just not earned the right to ask for their time. And if you're not respectful of the person's time in front of you, well, they're not going to be respectful of you, and so they're not going to work with you to put a deal together. Millennials, myself included, have less attention span than anyone else. It's because of technology. As a millennial, I expect to be able to press play on my phone and have a Hollywood movie playing instantly. I expect to be able to pick up my phone and check my bank details through an app rather than the laborious task of walking to a branch and actually speaking to someone. I expect to be able to communicate with every single one of my best friends on Facebook via a swipe of a finger or a thumb. And this is only going to get crazier over time. And of course, millennials like me are starting to become the buyers. And so this is just going to get compounded over and over as we move forward, kind of the next 5 to 10 years. Therefore, if you do not get the attention of the prospect within the first 3 seconds, even though they're looking at you eyeball to eyeball, or you think they are, well, they're not going to listen to the beginning of your pitch, they're not going to listen to the middle of your pitch. And if you're 5 minutes in, they're certainly not listening there either. Even though they might be looking at you face to face as they go through this, their brain is half processing something else and half processing something else, which definitely isn't your pitch. And finally, and this is probably the most important one, it's easier for the prospect to say yes to a 3-second pitch when you want to get permission to pitch in the first place. When you're talking about such a small amount of time, just 3 seconds, well, it's easier for the prospect to agree than face the pressure of saying, leave me alone, because people don't like to necessarily be mean. And so because of this, most buyers will never turn down a 3-second pitch. Now, when you start your pitch, that person is instantly asking themselves 4 questions. They're asking themselves these questions because they've been burned before by other salespeople and just random people in their life who have pitched them on ideas or asked them to do things for them. People learn this behavior because people ask them for a few minutes of their time, and these pitches turn into an hour presentation, a real time suck, and so they want to avoid that at all costs because, of course, they're busy. Prospects have also been lied to in pitches before, and so they've got a number of questions that they want to ask, or they need to ask to get certain answers for before they can take you seriously, before they can consider your offer at all. Never follow Brian's advice of always be closing. And remember that the prospect is just trying to protect themselves. You do the same thing if a random person jumped out of a bush and tried to pitch you as well. So don't always be closing, always be asking yourself these 4 questions. The 4 questions are, what are you trying to sell me? How much is it? Why should I believe you? And what's in it for me? That's the most important one. What is in it for me? So let's run through these questions very briefly, and I'll give you an overview of what you need to achieve and how you answer each one for the prospect. So what are you selling? The first question is the most obvious, and this is the one that most people spend pretty much all of their time focusing on. What are you trying to sell me? Of course, you need to explain what your offer is, why the prospect should want it, and why it's relevant to that person, that specific person that you're in front of. This is perhaps the simplest part of the pitch because you're talking in definitives. You are describing a tangible asset rather than talking about abstract concepts of value. The next question that the prospect is asking themselves is, how much is this sodding going to cost me? Now, what the prospect really is asking is this a fair and is this a good deal? I'm going to say that word again because 1, it's important, and 2, Americans do not understand my accent when I say it. I call it a fair deal, where the proper Queen's English would be, it needs to be a fair deal. It is important to understand that the prospect only needs a fair deal. They don't need a bargain. If there is enough return on investment on the table, prospects won't waste time negotiating with you on price. If everything seems fair, the question of price it doesn't even come up in their mind. They just start agreeing with you, nodding and go, yeah, let's discuss this more. Next, the prospect wants to know that you're not trying to trick them or that your prices are just too damn good to be true. And subtle hint here, in the world of business, especially in the B2B space, if the price seems too good to be true, it probably is. There's probably a catch that goes alongside it. Now, there are numerous ways to improve the believability of your pitch. For example, so me personally, when I was in medical device sales, I would start my pitches with, hey, your colleague in the theatre opposite you got XYZ value from 1, 2, 3 of our products. And then I dive into the rest of the questions that we've got to answer in this 3-second period. Humans generally are naturally insecure and skeptical, because if we weren't, predators, big cats, whatever was out there when we were evolving would be able to trick us and kill us. We've got to be skeptical because we don't have any natural weapons, any defense other than our brains. Our biggest advantage in nature, your biggest advantage in business, is your brain and your ability to think quickly on the spot. Now, for the buyer, let's put it on them for a second. There's an additional pressure in the B2B space because they have both their ego on the line and their livelihood as well. If they accept the pitch, if they believe what you're telling them and they buy from you, well, if it all falls apart, they're gonna look stupid to their colleagues and they might even get sacked, which means they're not going to be able to pay their mortgages, their wives are going to leave them, their husband's going to leave them, the kids are going to hate them. There's so many potential problems downstream from this one decision to listen to your pitch that are rattling around in their brain that you've got to be trustworthy for them to pay attention to you. Your prospects have got to trust you that the return on investment that you're pitching them is worth the potential pain of perhaps changing a service provider or getting set up in the first place. And to emphasize this, George MacDonald once said, to be trusted is a greater compliment than being loved. Not that you're looking for your prospect's love, but you get the gist of all of it. The final question that the prospect is asking themselves is, what is in it for me? And there's probably an acronym, there's probably an easy way of saying this, but what is in it for me? This is the most important question and the one that is most underappreciated and underleveraged by B2B sales professionals. Your prospects only care about you, your product, your service, what you can offer them, all this incredible amount of value that we talk about in the sales school, that we give you all this leverage. From the prospect's perspective, there's only 2 things that they care about. 1, are you going to make them more money? 2, are you going to make their lives easier? There's a clear distinction here, and this is how you should separate your pitch from every other schmuck who's pitching your potential customers. Your pitch must share why the product or service is great for both the business itself. Of course, this is obvious. This is probably what you've been doing the whole time, the whole of your career in sales. But you also need to pitch the prospect on what they are personally going to get out of using your product or service. You're going to have a return on investment for the individual, that maybe it frees up their time if they're feeling overwhelmed. Maybe it makes them look frigging great in front of their manager so they get offered a pay rise or a promotion. Your perfect pitch must scratch that layer deeper than everyone else's. And you're going to pitch the prospect on how you can help them improve their career or take some of the day-to-day hassles that they have completely off their plate. And of course, your perfect pitch, whether you like this or not, whether it's going out on a phone call, a cold call, hopefully a warm call, whether it's going out at a meeting, whether it's going out when you go to an event, whether it's an email, wherever your perfect pitch is being broadcasted, well, it's got to be bespoke. And this is the reason why. It's got to help that individual that you're in front of. Everyone has their own pain. You've got to solve their specific pain. That is the beauty of all this. This is pretty much the secret sauce. And according to the Rain Group, the top salespeople calibrate their pitches specifically to the needs of their prospect. This means that 79% of their primary research data is relevant to the prospect's business, or having 67% of the pitch's content specifically tied to the situation that your prospects are in. The exciting thing about all of this is that if the prospect resonates with this part of the pitch, they're already seriously considering your offer. How incredible is that? With one pitch, you're halfway in the door. Expect them to give you some objections to break through, but you can definitely see this as a buying signal for sure at this point. It's just like if a guy or a girl that you like, if they're playing hard to get. You just gotta play that game, you gotta win them over, and then the deal is yours. So if they are the 4 questions that our prospect is thinking in their brains when we rock up, when we start to open our mouth and pitch them, well, what does the pitch consist of? It consists of 3 major parts. First off, you must demonstrate a high return on investment with your offer, with your pitch. You must have a clear message for the prospect. And finally, you must provide evidence that you are trustworthy, that you're not just some Joe Schmo off the street, that you can actually provide everything that you're discussing in the other parts of the pitch. So let's run through each one of these individually. First up, high return on investment. The most important aspect of your pitch is that it demonstrates your offer has a crazy high return on investment. All B2B deals come with some risk. Your goal is to show the prospect that the rewards far outweigh, am I doing this the right way? Your rewards outweigh the risk involved in all of this. Because although Harry is Sam's best customer, he's a real lazy bastard. And the only time that Harry makes a move and buys from sales professionals is when shit is really close to hitting the fan. You've got to get your customers, you've got to get Harry shifting and moving. And they're only going to do that when there's something on the line, when the stakes are high. Again, when the benefits of all this massively outweigh the problems that they are either facing or may face due to all the changes that are going to come in from buying your product or service. The second part of your incredible, perfect pitch formula is your message. Your message is what breaks through the noise of modern marketing and just modern everyday life. Remember, you're not just competing with your competition, your direct competition. It's not Nissan selling GTRs competing with Porsche here. You're competing with everyone who's contacting your buyer all day, every day. You're competing with BMW's flashy TV car commercials. You're competing with a hot girl advertising something on a billboard. You're competing against a cold beer with condensation dripping down the side that pops up on an image when they're browsing the web. You're competing with your prospects' colleagues who are pestering them all the time and trying to get their attention as well. As Leo Burnett once said, good advertising does not just circulate information, it penetrates the public mind with desires and belief. This is the end game of what your messaging needs to be. You've got to pitch your prospect, you've got to penetrate their desires and their beliefs. First off, it must have clarity. The prospect must know exactly what's going on without having to listen to the pitch a second time or read it again on an email that you've sent. It must have simplicity. The prospect shouldn't have to get out a calculator to confirm the return on investment that you're offering. It should be simple. Number 3, you've got to be able to pitch it very quickly. People are busy, and if it takes longer than 3 seconds, it's just simply too long. Number 4, it must prompt the prospect to take immediate action. And this action can be tiny. It can be so minuscule, but there's got to be some action attached to this. If there's no action, it just simply hasn't had an effect on the prospect, and there's no way to measure if any of this is working or not. In a nutshell, your message must share what you offer at what price, why the prospect should be a fool, why they should be crazy to pass it up, and it should do all of this very quickly and concisely. The final part of your perfect pitch must show that you are trustworthy. Your offer can't be too good to be true, it must be logical, it must make complete sense. As far as your prospect is concerned, right at this moment, as you pitch, as you introduce yourself, as you go through these 3 seconds with your messaging and your high ROI offer, you could be nothing more than a snake oil salesman trying to swindle them for everything that they've got. Now, personality and charisma are key here. These are the ways that you build massive rapport, massive trust with your prospect super quick. And of course, there is a charisma workshop, a good hour of content, and it's actually really simple charisma. It's broken down, it's been well studied. There's a charisma workshop in the Sales School. So let's pull everything together that we've learnt so far. You need a high return on investment offer, you need a compelling message, and you must appear trustworthy. And for you to nail the pitch and for it to be effective, you must see all of this from the eyes of your customer. You as the seller have what we call the burden of knowledge. This means that you know your product inside and out. You know your offer inside and out. You know what it's like to implement the product or service into an organization. You already know the answer to all the common questions that you typically get asked about your product or service. And the prospect does not know any of this. So you must make sure that your pitch doesn't take anything for granted. Do not take anything for granted. Make your pitch as dumb as you possibly can, and it'll be way more effective. And finally, the pitch needs to be in the following order for it to make logical sense to your prospect. It needs to start with the message, you've got to prove then that you're trustworthy, and finally, you share your high return on investment offer. So, when you write your pitch out, when you start practicing it, when you start narrowing down all your messaging, you've got to ask yourself, does it grab the attention of the prospect? Does the prospect immediately want to know more? Would you believe this pitch if someone randomly in the street pitched it to you? And is the return on the investment high enough for me to bother listening to you any further? And there we have it. That is your perfect pitch formula. The final step of all of this is you want to test your pitch, and you never want to test anything in sales, whether it's cold emails, whether it's cold call, patterns, whatever it is. You never want to practice anything on the customers that you're trying to sell to. You're literally losing money every single time you do this. At best, if you're a member of the Sales School, you can email your pitch to our sales coaching team and they'll give you feedback on it within 48 hours. How incredible is that? Otherwise, practice your pitch with your sales manager or someone else within the organization that you work for. Of course, it's a little bit awkward asking for feedback from these individuals because you don't want to look like a fool in front of them. But if you don't have a coaching team behind you like the one that you have with the Sales School, with your Sales School membership, then that's probably the next best opportunity. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to click subscribe and I'll see you in the next piece of Sales School content that we put out. I think it's going to be actually on prospecting. I'll see you then.